one of the things that actually does set Halo apart is the ease of their app and being able to really clearly identify, you have 2 dogs, you can identify exactly where they're at in the yard and how you want to communicate with them really clearly.
Hey, welcome back to Woof Wisdom. Today we have somebody who has truly grown alongside the Halo system. She's a trainer, she's an advocate, and she is a longtime Halo user, Kaaren Thompson. So Kaaren, you've been working here with Halo, I know since, what version was it? Version 3?
The first version, before there was anything even published about it except for probably a manufacturer's video.
There wasn't even a number on it. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, there was nothing you could find on it on YouTube or anything.
Wow. So now we are on Halo 5.
Yes.
That just came out pretty recently. And, you're not just a dog owner, you're a trainer. So it's really good to have you and have your perspective on Woof Wisdom today.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I am a trainer, but I train small children. I'm actually an art teacher by day. So I teach kindergarten, first and second, and I work with my dogs and I adapt a lot of what I do with my kindergartners first and second with my dogs. So I don't consider myself a trainer. I've never shared that I'm a trainer, but I certainly have the perspective of what it's like being a dog owner trying to implement training.
All right. That is fair enough. And a kindergarten teacher, I mean, you get instant massive karma points just for doing that. So
if you can do that, you can really do anything.
You do anything. So let's talk about really the whole generation, right? So you got Halo when it was just a concept basically to now Halo 5. So You've seen a lot of changes throughout the time.
Yeah. And let me tell you about those. So I guess let me back up a little bit. When I originally adopted this product, my hope was that I would have something that we could install up at our camp that we have in the Adirondacks. And honestly, I had a toddler and a new puppy. And trying to figure out which one to manage first, honestly, the toddler probably won out a lot more than the puppy did a lot of the time. But one of the things that I really wanted to have was just this boundary piece where I could also call her back. And so that was one of the reasons I originally invested in the Halo 1. And over the years, I've really seen it, develop, not only from the product standpoint, from technology, the GPS, the interface, the customer service, the accuracy, the feedback, but really getting to understand that product from the ground up. And I think that's one of the unique things about me as somebody who's sharing here today is I really started before there was nothing, which is why I started my YouTube channel. Yeah. And there was nothing published about it. I think it was after COVID, right? So everybody's looking for something to do, something to keep their brains pretty amused. And so I started a YouTube channel and just started sharing my journey with what it was like, if it was working, if it wasn't. And I found actually in the first version, it was actually pretty accurate. One of the biggest challenges was obviously like battery level. And then I just kept following it. And over the years, I've developed a relationship with Halo, but I've also seen multiple developments from Halo in their product line and how they've adapted things, feedback from customers, whether it was from their first version of USB-C to now kind of their magnetic port, a much more robust magnetic port, as a matter of fact. And also adapting, some of the AI technology into their device so that it can read a little bit better and not have as much drift and have a better understanding of the dog. And I think I just have a very deep understanding of the product that it's almost hard for me to explain in some ways, just because I just know it so well.
Yeah, I didn't realize you started the YouTube channel because of Halo.
Yeah,
you are a super fan. I mean, I think that's what we got to call you. But and 2 little dogs. It's Cosmo and Vivi.
Yeah, Vivi. Come here. So this is Vivi, my Goldendoodle.
Oh, there we go. Wow.
She's not a little dog. She's about 65 pounds. Cosmo, he's laying on the ground. He's about 125.
Okay.
She is 7 and he's 3. They're both trained on the collar. And we're about 6 months, 6 to 8 months after kind of they were past the major parts of puppyhood, really working on boundaries.
So you're the first person I've talked to that has had 2 dogs.
Oh yeah.
And 2 Halo collars.
Yeah.
1 app. How does that work?
It's really not a problem. I think that's one of the things that actually sets Halo apart from other dog collars. In addition to Halo, I mean, I've been actually contacted by other competitors. I've reviewed their product as well. They're not bad products at all. But one of the things that actually does set Halo apart is the ease of their app. And being able to really clearly identify, you have 2 dogs, you can identify exactly where they're at in the yard and how you want to communicate with them really clearly, has been kind of what sets them apart, I think, from a lot of those other pieces, as well as just the flow from being in the house to going to the outside. Yeah. There's no setup, no switch on, nothing like that. It's just automated.
Now, one of the things, I rescue dogs, so I don't get the pleasure of having a dog with me very long, but I try to introduce them to the Halo. Yeah. And one of the things that I realized is really, it's not as much about you learning, but also about the dog learning, right? They've got to know what these prompts mean. It's not something you just snap on the dog and say, good luck. There's a little meaning involved, right? So how is Cosmo and Vivi integrated to that?
Well, I think that was the biggest challenge, actually. And that was one of the things I think a lot of people come back to my YouTube channel for, because Halo actually set up a whole training program in their system. And I tried doing everything I could. And then I realized, I'm like, wow, first of all, either Vivi's not reacting to what she should be reacting or moving closer forward than she should be. And so I remember calling Halo and saying, what do you think about this? They're like, just go for it. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to adapt your natural confidence and instinct into, okay, she's getting it and she's moving forward. But Vivi started to catch on really quickly. I found it was actually easier to move her from the inside part of the training to the outside part of the training. And then, really kind of reiterate that by leading her up to the edge, bringing her back, giving her that reward. And she really started to snap. I felt really confident in the product outside independently after about 30 days. But that was after using it consistently. Cosmo was a little bit different. The reason he was different is he is a Bernese Mountain Dog who is very attached to his people. So he automatically took to the collar, differently than my other dog, which is, something that I really share with people, is that your breed, your personality of your dog, your traits are going to sometimes lead you more than what a manual is going to say. Yeah. And that's what I found with both dogs. You kind of have to have a better understanding of them and more of the confidence in yourself that it's also okay to make a couple mistakes and just kind of go for it.
For me, I found that the little time that I spent training them, I always did it after dinner because it was like warm outside, get a half an hour. Let's play with the collar. It was kind of like a reward for both of us. But, every dog, I don't even think it's a breed thing. They just typically
they're all different.
Differently, just like humans.
Like kids. Yeah. And even with Cosmo, before I was even willing to train him, just having him wear it around the house, having that weight, he was just used to it. So when we did implement it, it was probably almost a month later. He was like, oh yeah, I put on my collar. And then we were suddenly able to get into, okay, this is what it does.
Yeah. And I think it's just sort of like that consistency too of putting it on in the morning, just like you get fed at this time. You go out after dinner. It just seems to work, a little bit of magic. But I know Halo, because I've had problems before too. They stand behind their product. They're there if you need them.
Yeah, and that's been one of the biggest benefits of working with Halo. Is anytime I've called, they've been able to help me not only work through a problem, but there's also been times where, for example, I've experienced a failure. And instead of me even realizing there was a failure on my collar, they actually contacted me because they actually monitor that for you. Yeah. And then there's been other times where if I've had an issue, I've been able to call and they've been able to actually go back through the logs and say, oh, yep, we see this is what's going on, and go ahead and rectify that right away. And that's the other really unique piece is, they're able to read it from a true technology standpoint, much like when you're at work and you're working with your tech service. Mm-hmm. And they can say, oh yeah, let me log into your computer and tell you what's going on.
Yeah, it's real time. And I mean, I can't think of any other product I have that really they're friendly and they help you. Yeah. They're proactive. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. Super amazing. You mentioned that you go camping, you go up to the Adirondacks and camp. So you got that sort of unique experience of having a lot of trees around you, of maybe not having the world's greatest cellular coverage. How has that been using the Halo collar?
We have not had an issue at our camp. And, the major thing with any GPS collar you're going to have is a bit of drift. But what I try and remind people whenever I talk about the collar is the dog is not trained to a boundary as much as they're trained to a sound. So that drift automatically works very much in their benefit because sometimes that sound might fluctuate a little bit by that 10 or 15 boundary. We haven't experienced issues up at our camp, whether it's wireless or anything like that. But there have been certain days, I'm sure, when, there's different phases of the sky, where you'll get something a little bit closer, something a little bit further. And we ensure that they have enough space, but they're so well trained to that sound at this point, that drift doesn't impact them at all. Which is really great because that also allows me to take them to other locations and very quickly set up the fence, and they're automatically listening for the sound. Unlike an invisible fence where dogs are really trained to a visual cue, my dogs are really trained to that sound cue.
Tell me about that, because I mostly have stayed at home, and I've set up the fence and it's kind of there. But tell me about going on a trip or going to somebody's house and setting up a fence. What is it actually like?
Yeah, I would say in the past, my dogs are really good on the collar, so it's probably a little bit different now. In the past, anytime I've set them up on a collar, I've taken them up to that boundary, listened for that sound, brought them back, just done a day of, not even a day, 15 minutes. Let's just understand the boundary. That tool is a communication tool. Yeah. And, a quick introduction, they remind themselves of it. I'm sort of at the point now where I can almost take them to Mimi's house, set up the collar and kind of let them out, and feel pretty confident that they're going to stay around us. So it is a little bit different now, but I think that's also their maturity with the product itself. Right. Anybody, however, that I've talked to that's interested in, how do you transfer, this skill set to this skill set? I always tell them dogs have file folders. So as long as that file folder is in there, you just have to adapt kind of the new situation to what the file folder should look like to them in their brain. So just taking them up to those boundaries and letting them know what it is. Most recently, we went on a trip to Costa Rica. Both Cosmo and Bibby had to stay, a couple miles down the road at our dog sitter's house. Yeah. And that was a completely new environment, with like 10 Dachshunds and they're gigantic dogs. Like that's a great situation where it's so new, again, reading your dog, understanding, this is such a new thing. Let's go ahead and reintroduce them to that collar. So, we took them out and showed them what the boundary is because it's a totally different property. Other places you have to use your judgment. Although I will always say caution on the safer side is probably always the best choice.
Right. And pretty amazing because you were in Costa Rica, you could still kind of keep tabs on your dog, right? You could see how they're getting walks or they're active. Yeah. So do you use that function very often?
Yeah, actually, I've had a couple situations. My son is a big hockey player. We've been either off on a road trip or, something like Costa Rica. I'll suddenly get an alert on my phone. And it's great because I can just text somebody and say, hey, look, is everything okay? It kind of gives you that quick communication, really nice with somebody else, which I love. They also have the app and I'm able to train them. As I said earlier, one of the key things about this is that adaptability to the app is that as I bring somebody on and share the information with them and share with them how to work it, I need to also know that I can walk away and that they're going to also intuitively start to find how the tools work, et cetera. And that was one of the really nice things about the collar.
So talk about the health and fitness aspect of it too. That's for me, something I really didn't pay that much attention to, but then I'm like, oh, it's got this too.
It does have it. And it's actually something we really need to implement a little bit more in our house. Our dogs, especially since it's been so cold this winter. Yeah. They've been really caught inside. So we've been looking at how we're going to use it a little bit more this spring so we can get some more steps in, see the dog's activity. We see a huge spike naturally in the summer just because the dogs are outside all the time. But I think, my Goldendoodle, who I adore, is unfortunately my middle-aged woman with a lower metabolism at this point. Mm-hmm. She needs to get out and she needs more. Cosmo, he's just so active, but he needs more because of his energy and his anxiety. I think that's really, it's a great feature for being able to track. I've never really wrapped my head around, okay, how can I make this truly useful for my dog and for their health? And I think we're actually at a point for Vivi's health where we actually need to really take a look and see how can we track that data and make sure her quality of life is really to the best it can be.
That's a great point, because I mean, you might not need to look at it every day, but maybe at the end of the month, you're like, oh, wow, we were a little bit of a slacker this month.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
more walks. I don't know. I mean, it's just like, just like us. It's just an encouragement more than anything
Yes,
else. So
absolutely.
let's talk about, you mentioned, earlier version, battery didn't last as long. So what's your routine like? I always took the collars off at night, charged them overnight, and slap them on in the morning.
Yeah, honestly, these are basically cell phones.
Yeah.
Is how I describe them to people whenever I'm explaining what the GPS-based collar is. And every night, they're let out at the last time at night around 8:30, 9 o'clock. We take our collars off. We put them on our charger, just like we go up to bed and put our own phones on our charger.
Right.
And every morning we wake up and we put them back on, and we're good to go.
So you, Kaaren, have been with Halo for such a long time. Just tell us about, your overall impressions. You sort of done that. And by the way, I got to say, it's great meeting you, because we've seen your videos and we haven't really got to know you as well as I think we have in this video. So tell us about your impressions and, who should consider buying a new Halo Collar 5.
Yeah. And, having said that, I do have a long-standing history with Halo, and I've stuck with Halo. I have also reviewed multiple other collars. I've been requested by other companies to review the collar. I've accepted them and then realized I can't review it because I can't give it an honest review that feels good of recommending the product itself. So I've declined a lot of those. There are one or two competitors that I think are really good competitors and worth looking at, depending on whatever your situation is. And it's not unusual for people to reach out to me and say, what do you think, A or B? Mm-hmm. We've stuck with Halo mainly because of the comfort level that I have with it. I love the one feature that they really thought about from the beginning, which was that recall button. I think that is so important. And it's not a training button. It is, my dog's in the front and I'm standing in the back wondering where they are. You know what I mean? Like, let me call them over. So that has been one of the biggest things that kept me with Halo right from the beginning, was just the ability to be able to call them wherever they were at and around the boundary. Also, I think the app of being able to not only me understand the app, but me share the people in my home to understand the app, because I need them to understand it as well as I do, and or a dog sitter or something like that. And that was one of the things I think Halo just really flowed together with their product, as well as their consistent development in, just always trying to refine their piece. There's been a number of times where I've been in, on Facebook, there's a number of different groups and things like that. And I absolutely love the feedback that I hear from other customers when they're having a really, just positive experience with it. And like with any product, you're always going to have some challenges, but I think Halo's done really a stand-up job at trying to fill in the gap in where those support issues have been. And that was really kind of how I looked at it. And, I know I teach but there was a time where I was somebody who was a product manager and dealt with customer service and, the product itself. So when I kind of adapted this product, that was kind of the lens I was looking at it. What are they saying they're delivering on? Are we truly delivering on that? And then how is it making our quality of life for not only me, but my dogs better? And how are we continuing to improve and get support for that? And that's how I've really looked at this product and some of the other ones that I've reviewed, and others that I won't even bother to put up there because I don't think they're a good fit for really any family.
We want to thank you for joining us, Kaaren. You are amazing. Thank you for sharing your story with Halo. It's been so great to get to know you a little bit better. Sorry we couldn't see both dogs, but maybe next time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.